Good morning, everybody. Hopefully you had a wonderful weekend. We'll go ahead and get started here. So last week's 5Q tape breakdown was, in this snippet, we learned going for a few minutes of the turnover script. Do you think they understand what the portfolio turnover is? So guys, one of the fallacies that we have to combat is what's called expert fallacy or expertise fallacy. And what do you think that is talking about? What do you think that's talking about? Expertise fallacy. Not getting showing how much we know. That could be it, Nick, but it's a little, it's that, Nick, but it's something a little bit different. We assume. How often do we deal with these topics, guys? All the topics we talked about. How often do we deal with those topics? Daily. Yeah. So we start to assume that the client knows a lot more than they know. So we'll skip through things really super fast. And of course, does the client want to look stupid? No. So what do they do all as you're skipping through things really fast? What are they saying? And what is their head doing? Yep, they're nodding, saying yep, because they don't want to look stupid. So we can't assume that the only way we know they understand something is what? If they tell us. That's the importance of motivational interviewing. So that's what this is, a demonstration of that particular issue. I wanted to show you this. U.S. gross domestic product quarterly change at an annualized rate of return is 1.9 in 2019. It was also below 2% for the fourth quarter. So why is that important for us to know? Why is that important for us to know? What should be tied to gross domestic product? What should be tied to the growth of the economy? Yeah, the stock market, Tom, exactly right. The stock market. So if the stock market, if the growth is only at 2%, what does that tell us? That's right, Till. Well, if the growth of the economy is only at 2% and slowing, what does that tell us about the recent meteoric rise of the market for the last few months? Should the market be screaming up over the last couple of months when we see GDP falling? Well, that's right, Lonnie. It's funny money. It's excitement money. It's the it's people thinking you can't lose money in the market. But the market has to be tied to what? It has to be tied to economic growth, to company growth, and we're seeing a slowdown now. So that is another reason why we need to be cautious of what's going on. Yeah, Bob, profits. No, exuberance, that's the word I was looking for, Dale. So, cool. So the next thing that I found, and you guys all know this about me. So there was a recent, my belief on this, a recent article in Financial Advisor magazine talking about they did a study, I can't remember, some 300 or so advisors. So formal financial plans. 30.4% implement 20% or more of the plan. 20%. They had to go all the way down to 20% because if they went up to 50%, guess how many people implemented 50% of the plan? None, yeah. So they had to go all the way down to 20%. Only less than a third of people implement 20% of a formal financial plan. 51% implement less than 20% of the plan. 18% implement none of the plan. So why do I not like formal financial plan in software? Because the day you put it on their table or the day you shove it across the desk at them, it's what? It's out of date. That's right, Kevin. It's a snapshot in time. So because even if you are somehow prophetic and predict a 7% rate of return in the next 10 years is 7%, does that help them? If you predicted 7% over the next 10 years and the rate of return was 7% over the next 7 years, would that help? What would be the problem with that? You predicted the rate of return. Tom's got it. See if somebody else gets it. Yep, Till's got it. Yeah, sequence of return. So if they got that 7% rate of return by losing 30% the first 2 years, is that 7% going to be the same as if they gained 30% the first 2 years and lost 30% the last 2 years? No. So it does not make, and so first of all, you're not going to be able to predict the rate of return. Even if you did, it's not a static 7% rate of return. It's going to be up and down, up and down, up and down, which is going to greatly affect somebody who's going to want to pull money out. Third is can you predict the rate of inflation? No. Can you predict their spending? You guys worked with, we've got hundreds and hundreds of years experience on the phone call today. Do people spend the same way each year? No. So why do I not like formal financial plans? Because they're not going to be followed anyways. And the more complicated you make it, the easier it is for them to want to move forward, or the harder it is to make them want to move forward. So how is a 21-point checklist different? It actually goes right back to what I think Kevin said earlier. Was it Kevin that said it? Yes. It goes right back to what Kevin said earlier, which is what is different about the 21-point checklist? Is it predictive? No, it is not predictive. All it's telling you is what? Let's put you in the best possible situation for right now. And then what are we going to do next year? What's the first thing we always review on their annual review? The 21. So then we're going to put them in the best situation for right then. And then when the next year when we have an annual return, we look at the 21-point checklist, the non-financial things, we put them in the best situation then. So we're constantly putting them in the best situation non-financially. And then financially, how does our plan address the future differently than trying to predict rates of return? But guess what we admit? With our implementation, what do we admit? Yeah, we do a 50-50. By doing a 50-50, what are we admitting? That's right, Nick. We're admitting we don't know. It could, Tom, Kevin, yeah, Bob. We're admitting we don't know what's going to happen. So guess what we need to be prepared for? The best, the worst, or both? Both. So that with the non-financial things, we're controlling what we can actually control. With the financial things, we're saying we don't have a crystal ball. If we had a crystal ball, we'd be the wealthiest person on the earth. We don't have an algorithm, because if I had an algorithm that I knew that worked, how rich would I be? If I had a computer algorithm or some sort of financial manager that could predict the future, how rich would he be, and how rich would I be, and how rich would all my clients be? So we know we don't have any of those things. So guess what we do? We hedge our bets. We want to be in the market when the market's good. And, with a 50-50, it's 100% of your portfolio in the market when the market's good. Yes, that's right. Some at the full and some at 50%. But when the market goes bad, at least we have how much out? So we get all of the good and 50% of the bad. And we avoid 50% of the bad. That's the perfect thing that we can do. Does that make sense? That's why we do what we do. So next thing I want to talk about is some recent information that's out there on selling. So this is from an article that was a person who read all of Jill Conrad's books and put together an article that said how to sell anything to anybody. And they came up with a number of different things that we want to make sure that we do when we're selling. First, it's not about you. It's all about them. It's not about you. So why do when I recommend for guys that are doing seminars, what do I tell you about how to start a seminar? Should there be anything about you coming out of your mouth? No. All of your bragging occurs where? Yeah, the pre-show slides. The pre-show slides. It's the ones that they're looking at as people are arriving. You do not talk about you in the presentation about how smart you are. Now, that used to work. Who did that work for? Talking about how smart you were and how many credentials you had and how many letters you had behind your name and how many clients you had and how long you've been in the business and the greatest generation. It does not work with baby boomers. It worked terrifically with the greatest generation. Because when you talk about baby boom that way about baby boomers, hey, look how smart I am. Look at the credentials I have. Look at all the letters behind my name. You should believe me because I'm an authority. What does baby boomers think when you do that? That's right, Tom. They say, you know what off? Turns them off. They're not impressed by you bragging about yourself. Greatest generation did, baby boomers don't. So that's the first thing that she pointed out. You got to make it about them. Also, do your research. See, up to the year 2000, there was very, very, very little research done on selling, on the psychology of selling. Since then, guess how much research has been done? Tons and tons and tons. And that's why the old, the people like Zig Ziglar, which I used to love back when I first started selling in the 80s. I used to love Zig Ziglar. I used to love Tom Hopkins. I used to love all those guys. But guess what? Was their stuff based on research, or was it based on anecdotal evidence? Research or anecdotal evidence? Yeah, personality. It's personality, Kevin. So you got to do your research. So we've done research for you. We got 60,000 meetings that good that are recorded, listened to, adjusted our presentation based on those 60,000 meetings. Is that good research? Motivational interviewing, research to up and down, science of selling, the language of trust, Daniel Kahneman's work, Cialdini's work. Cialdini was actually the one that kicked it off in the early 2000s, the research. And when people found out, when researchers found out how successful Kahneman and how successful Cialdini was in talking about how people buy and the psychology of selling, it blew up, and everybody does that kind of research now. But I'm constantly reading, Jeff's constantly reading on these things for you, and we're incorporating that as we come across. So do your research. We do that for you. Develop rapport. Now, the rapport she's talking about, the rapport that works for baby boomers, is it about talking about how much you have in common? No. Let me give you a quick example of that. Let's say that there are two guys going to a clinic. Okay, they're going to a clinic, and one of them's rich. He arrives in his Bentley, so and he's dressed in his $1,000 shoes and everything else. He's rich as can be. And then another guy drives, pulls up. He's in his jeans, in his Ford F-150 and his cowboy hat. How much do they have in common? How much rapport are they going to have? Do they live the same types of lives? Even if they're both wealthy, do they live the same kind of lives? Do they have the same kind of rapport? They have very little. Okay, but they're at the clinic, so they arrive, and then they both find out that they have prostate cancer. Now, on the elevator going down, they're in the same elevator, and they strike up a conversation. They find out they both have prostate cancer. What happens to the rapport? Goes way up. That's right, Kevin, goes way up. Because now they have what? Core things in their life that are the same. So the one thing that we teach at 5Q with motivational interviewing is this. In every other type of selling, the selling that we were instructed with when we first got into business, everybody else out there pitching their selling systems, because I subscribe to all sorts of different selling systems to see if there's new research. Unfortunately, there isn't, and most of them are full of crap. I find a few people who occasionally know what they're talking about, but 90% of it is crap. And I'll give you an example of that. Almost every single selling system out there today, which most of them aren't based on research, they're still doing the anecdotal stuff, they talk about how to overcome objections. How to overcome objections. See, if you think about it, what is the worst time or the highest stress level, the highest stress point in a selling presentation? What is it? What's it going to be? Not the close. Till's got it. See, but Tom's got it. The objection. What's happening to their blood pressure, their pulse rate? What's happening to their fight, flight when they throw an objection at us? Goes up. What happens to ours? It goes up. Objections are the highest stress point in a presentation. Because if you overcome all the objections, is closing going to be stressful, guys? No, it's objections. And so every other selling system out there is telling you how to overcome objections, how to overcome objections. Here's what you say, here's what you say, here's what you say. How do we deal with objections? We actually use the highest stress level point, the highest stress point in a selling presentation to develop the deepest rapport. How does motivational interviewing and what we teach you with 5Q, how does it use objections to develop deep rapport? Yes, Till, we agree with them a little. That's right, Kevin. We agree and we parrot and we tell them how smart. We spend the first 2-3 minutes telling them what, why their objection is kind of right, maybe right, or absolutely not 100% right, but 150% right. That's how we overcome objections. So when you tell them how smart they are and you start arguing their point for them, what happens to rapport, guys? Yeah, we got some, Bob. What happens to rapport? That goes up a little or a lot when we're telling them how smart they are and that everything that they believe in is right. See, we have the same beliefs now. So we actually, with 5Q, what we do is we use a stress point, which most other selling systems are telling you to dance around and here's what you say and here's how you overcome it and you prove that they're wrong. No. We're going to prove that they're right. We're going to tell them why they're right. And so what I'm saying here is you got to develop the right rapport, saying, hey, you fish, I fish. Baby boomers, what do they think when you start doing that kind of stuff? When you go to the car lot or you go to the attorney or you go to the whatever and they're trying to sell you something and they start telling you how much you're like by saying, oh, you went to the University of Minnesota? I did too. No. Oh, you like the color red? That's my favorite color. When you do that, how quickly do baby boomers see through that? Chop. And it doesn't help you. It actually hurts you. So we develop rapport, but we develop rapport where? At the highest stress points, and then throughout. When we got them throughout the meeting, guess what we're doing every time we got them? Especially when we're doing that, empowering. What are we doing? We're developing deep rapport through the whole process. Does that make sense? Our next point was understand the buying persona. Do we understand our client's buying persona? Yes, we do. Why? Why do we understand more than any other system out there? Why do we understand the buying persona? Because who developed our process for us? Did I develop it? Yes, Nick, right. They did, Bob. That's right, Kevin. They designed it. In the 97, when I started to do this, I recorded every meeting. I listened to every meeting from front to back, and I fixed one thing after another. And then, so in 2000, when I brought to guys, I found that I'd had it perfected for myself in 2000, but for the next 2 or 3 years, we found that not everybody's like me, so we listened to everybody, all of our advisors' meetings, and we basically, when we found rough spots, we fixed them. But in the last 10, 15 years, guess what? Guess how much we've changed the presentation. And that's why I go crazy. There's only one question that I go crazy about. It's when somebody says, well, what if this happens? So why does that question drive me crazy? Well, what if they say this? Or what if this happens? Why does that drive me crazy? Because if that was happening, what would Jeff and myself have done a long time ago? Yeah, glad. We would have addressed it already. So, you know, if they do say that thing, send Jeff the tape, send myself the tape, and we'll fix it for you. But the nice thing is, if you do it our way, for those of you that have had meetings here lately, have you had a meeting where it was like you sent the client the script the night before and they simply followed the script? How many of you have had that experience? If you haven't had that experience, guess what you need to do? I'm getting a lot of yeses and me's. So if you haven't had that experience, you need to go back and what? Learn the 21-point checklist better. Because when you do the 21-point checklist scripts the way we lay them out, the client's going to say exactly what you want them to say. Make sense? So yes, we know the buyer's persona because of 60,000 meetings, they've told us. Now, do we work with everybody? Do we work with young people? Do we work with business owners? Do we work with pre-retirees? No, we work with one group of people, which is retirees. And we have 60,000 tapes of people across the country, from California to Florida to Maine to Arizona. We've got 60,000 people, Texas to Minnesota. 60,000 people have told us what their persona is, what they want us to say, what they want us to ask, what they want us to cover. They've done that for us. Another concept is contribute first. How do we contribute first to our clients? How much do we get paid to do any of the non-financial things, guys? Nothing. So how do we contribute first? Do we only talk about the money? Do we only talk about and help them with things that we get paid for? Or is half of what we do about things we don't even get paid for? Yeah, it's the non-financial. We contribute first. We sell second. And that's where, and Jeff and I, we always chuckle because we'll have some new guys come on and they're uncomfortable with the system at first. And here's why they're uncomfortable with the system. They'll say, I'm just uncomfortable. I have to tell you, I'm uncomfortable because, you know what, they're moving the money before I even show them what I'm going to do. Guys, is that a problem or is that a great thing? People wanting to move the money even before you show them a product. That's awesome, because when they're wanting to move the money before you even show them a product, guess how great your product presentation has to be. Now, I think our product presentation is fantastic between the FIA presentation and I'm drawing a blank. It takes me a while to come back from vacation. What am I talking about? What am I thinking about, guys? Our income plan. It's a sale. Thanks, Dill. So I better take shorter vacations. So between our sale presentation and our FIA presentation, guess what? Doesn't need to be great, but it's great already. Ask questions and listen. Do we do this, guys? Yes. Be mindful of psychological fallacies, the anchoring effect, depending too heavily on initial information. Decoy effect. Third option helps people decide between the other two. Rhyme is reason. Don't tell, sell, preach, or teach. It's amazing that when you put things in a rhyme, how much more people think agree with it. Loss aversion. Loss is more painful than gain is pleasurable. Peak end rule. People remember the climax and the end. Curse of knowledge. Experts have a hard time communicating. That's what I was talking about earlier. Experts have a hard time communicating to people, to everybody else. That's what last week's 5Q tape breakdown was about. Confirmation bias. We accept information that aligns with our beliefs. How do we use that, guys? Confirmation bias. We accept information that aligns with our beliefs. How does the 5Q process and the 20-point checklist work with that? Do we ever tell them they should accept our information? Who tells them they should accept our information? They tell us they should accept information. Yep. Approach at their level and emotion. And here's something that I don't talk about often enough, but we should understand that. If somebody's being terse and grumpy with you, what should you be? Nicer and more open and more happy? Yeah, Till's got it, Tom's got it. You're the same. So what I tell guys to do is this. Take your two fingers, right now, everybody do this. Take your two index fingers and touch them. Now push harder with the left one. If that's them, if the left finger is them, you don't want to allow them to push you. But on the other hand, you don't want to push so hard that you're pushing them back. So that means the amount of pressure that they apply, what should you do? Overwhelm them? Let them make you a pushover? Equal. So if they're somewhat terse and grumpy, guess what you're going to be? Terse and grumpy. If they're happy, guess what you're going to be? Happy. And think about this. If somebody's terse and grumpy and you're happy, does that make them feel better or even more irritated? When you're terse and grumpy and that other person across from you is happy and outgoing, does that make you happy or does it make you more irritated? Yeah, more irritated. Mike, help me. You said why more? Can you explain that? Is that a question, Mike, or were you answering the question? So I'm waiting for him to. So when you're terse and to the point, you're not going to give up on motivational interviewing, but your tone and your pace is going to match theirs. Okay, thanks, Mike. He just clarified it, just a half sentence. Now, the next thing is leverage emotion: greed, fear, altruism, envy, pride, shame. These are things. Now, what we do, and what she does not have in hers is frustration. And I think we have to have frustration in there too. So altruism, we do that a little bit. Envy, maybe a little pride. Pride, what do we use that really leverages pride? Let's see if you got your thinking caps on today. What do we use that really leverages their pride? What got? Very good, you guys. Empowering. Well, you guys are awesome. Awesome. Empowering really leverages their pride. Greed, fear, and frustration. Where do we use that? In the close of the agreement meeting. That's right. With the goals, you guys are on fire this morning. Awesome job, guys. Greed, fear, and frustration. That's what we address at the close of the agreement meeting, getting them to tell us why they need to get this stuff done now, not to wait, and why it makes sense to come back and spend more time with us and gather the information that we need. And remember that you're selling to a person. You should always ask yourself this: how would blank respond to the sentence? How would you respond to it if you, and I do this all the time, guys, when I'm developing a presentation, when I'm doing a script, I'm always thinking, if somebody did that script to me, if somebody asked me that, how would that affect me? Now, the other thing you want to say is, how would it affect your grandma? So you got to put yourself in their shoes. You got to say, if somebody approached my grandma the way I'm approaching her, would I be happy and pleased, or would I be perturbed and step in? If somebody said that to my grandma, would I be happy and pleased that they're treating her with respect, that they're going at her pace, that she's understanding everything that's going on, that she's being empowered, or am I going to be mad that that person who's trying to sell her just twisting her arm and trying to hard sell her? I always ask yourself when you're doing things, and here's the when you're doing the 21-point checklist script, or you're doing practicing a seminar script. When you're practicing with yourself, should you only do your side of the script, or should you do both yours and the client's out loud? Theirs as well. And what are you accomplishing when you're doing theirs as well? You're getting into their mindset, their empathy, right? So you're realizing if you ask that question and you feel uncomfortable with that question, you'd say, that's not going to work. Or, oh, boy, that's a little harsh. Or, ooh, they could argue with that. That's the importance of practicing both sides of the script. Awesome. So that concludes what helps you sell more, but we'd also like to speed up your sales cycle. And let's talk about some of the things that HubSpot has found. And HubSpot's an awesome resource for marketing and for sales because they assimilate a lot of different information and collate a lot of information. So these are the 15 things that will speed up your selling process. Automate repetitive tasks, set agreed upon goals for each sales call, explore, and I'm going to go into these a little bit more detail in a second here. Explore prospects' objections before responding to them. Be clear about pricing early on. Make it ridiculously easy for them to sign. Focus on your highest performing channels. Be a person you want to talk to. Use incremental losses, or closes, not losses. Use incremental closes. Create a plan for sales meetings. Surface objections early and often. Take back and forth of scheduling out of meetings. Leverage social proof. Regularly clean your CRM of cold leads. Keep alignment with your marketing. And keep personalized experience for each prospect. So let's talk about that. Process simplification. Eliminate, delegate, and automate. So guys, what is the do you think I could have made $1 million a year? And again, I'd be making $2 or $3 million a year based on the fact that I made $1 million 20 years ago, based on how much money people have right now. But back when I made $1 million 20 years ago, could I have done that without Missy handling all the paperwork? No. So if you want to make a lot of money, guess what you have to have? You don't need to do it now, but guess what your goal should be? You got to get somebody to do that paperwork for you. And, and unfortunately, is there more or less paperwork today than there was 20 years ago? More. So you got to have somebody to do the paperwork for you. Because if you're buried in paperwork, how much can you sell? You're exhausted. You got to free up. So you got to delegate and eliminate and automate tasks. One of the things that drives me crazy is that ECA will do a lot of follow-up work for you if you send them copies. You don't have to send them the original to your applications, but send them copies of your application so they can do the follow-up work for you. That's having an extra person in your office doing follow-up. And are you paying for that? Does ECA charge you for that? Do they send you a bill every month for that? No. So how hard is it to send them a duplicate? Send them a duplicate. And you should be looking at automating tests. Well, here I'll give you an example of that. How do I treat people in my first meeting that come in from a tax seminar versus a Medicare seminar versus a Social Security seminar versus an investment seminar versus the eye-to-eye versus a referral? How do I treat them differently at my agreement meeting? The same. That's right. The same. Because if I started to deal with everybody differently, what would that do? Speed me up or slow me way down? Make me more efficient or less efficient? You got to be a machine. And machines don't work differently every time. When you start the car, guess how every piece of that machinery works when you start your car? Different every time or the same every time? And if it starts working differently every time, guess what you're going to be visiting very, very soon? A mechanic. And that's going to slow you down. So have a system. Eliminate the things you don't need to do. Delegate the things you need to do. Automate. A lot of times I'll ask guys, that haven't written a case in a month. They haven't written a case in a month. I'll ask them, what'd you do? How many working hours, if we work a normal working week, how many working hours are there in a month? At least what? 160, right? And I say, you haven't sold a single case in the last 160 hours. What have you been doing for the last 160 hours? So 160 hours, think about it, guys. Can you really say I was productive if for the last 160 hours you haven't sold anything? Is that productive? What were you doing during that time? Do you make money by scrolling through the internet? Do you make money by doing research on finding the needle in the haystack algorithm that's going to make your clients tons of money because we know that doesn't exist? Are you making? What are you doing with those 160 hours? It pays. If you haven't written a case in a month, guess what the first assignment I would have you do? If you hadn't written a case in a month, guess what the first assignment I'd have you do? What do you think the first assignment would be? It would be to document every hour you spend for the next 2 weeks. What did you do from 8 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock on Monday, 8 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock on Tuesday, 8 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock on Wednesday? Because if guys that haven't written a case in a month, what is that going to look like if they document that? Would they be proud to show their spouse that, or would they be ashamed of that? Because there's no way you're working a 40-hour work week if you're not writing a case per month. Does that make sense? So eliminate the stuff that's not making you money, delegate the things that get in the way of you making money, and automate the process, which we've done for you. Just follow our automated process for what you do at a first meeting, what you do at a second meeting, what you do at a third meeting. Set goals and objectives for each meeting and the next meeting. Have we done that for you with the process, the 200-point checklist process? Yeah. Overcoming price objections before they happen. Know what they are and have the client tell you it isn't a problem. When do we have them tell us our pricing isn't a problem? When does the client tell us that our pricing is not a problem? Yeah, as soon as we sit down. At the very first meeting, we say, hey, would it be okay if I cover with what happens in the next hour or so? And they say yes. And then what do I immediately do? I say, hey, we're going to cover basic questions that you may have, but first I have some questions for you because we need to tailor fit our answers to you. Second of all, you probably want to earn paid. First meeting, there's no cost for that whatsoever. Now, in the future, about half the people do work with me, and depending on how much they do with us, if they do more, they pay more. If they do less, they pay less. But depending on what we do for them, if we do a lot more, they'll pay more. If we do a lot less, they'll pay less. So until we know what you need done, want done, or even need anything done, obviously we won't know what the exact pricing. And when you decide to pay, you can pay any number of ways. But about half the people that sit down with us, they end up, just like you're sitting here today, not working with us at all. We're able to give them great information. They're able to go home and do it themselves, and they don't become a formalized client. They don't end up paying us at all. So have I covered right in the first 5 minutes how I'm paid, and does anybody have a problem with it when I go through that? Does any client have a problem when I go through it that way? Because it makes sense. If I do more, they're going to pay what? More. If I do less, they're going to pay what? Less, and then half the people don't work with me at all. So we cover that right up front. That's clear and simple pricing. Be a person that you'd want to talk to. We talked about that earlier. Ask yourself, what would I do if I heard somebody talk like that to my grandma? What would I do if somebody talks that way to me? Be the person you'd want to talk to. Use incremental closes. How do we use that in the 21-point checklist system? Incremental closes. How do we do that in the 21-point checklist system? Especially in the 21-point checklist meeting. How do we do that? Do we go for the jugular at first? No. The first thing we talk about is survivor's guide. Will anybody leave their advisor because their advisor did not do a survivor's guide? No. So then why do we start with the survivor's guide? It's the toe in the door that, hey, that guy that you love, the guy you've worked with for 20 years, the guy who you think walks on water, he could be doing tiny little things better. And if they admit that could be doing tiny little things better, guess what they can also admit? That maybe he missed something else, and maybe he missed something else. And then when we find out that first 7 things, when they find out, there's these things here that maybe aren't his job, but he could certainly do that. I mean, I think that's excellent value added. After they agree that, yeah, there's a lot of incremental or extra added value that he's missing, can they then admit that maybe he missed some things that were his job? Yes. And when they admit that maybe he missed some things that are his job, then can they admit, maybe he's missing things on purpose. Maybe he's not giving us information that he should have given us on purpose. It's kind of funny, too. The things that he missed giving us, the information he missed giving us, would have put us in a better position and cost us less. But by not giving us that information, we're in a worse position and paying more. But if I started out that way, would it work? Would the process work if I started out that way? No. They would reject. They would knee-jerk reaction, would defend. It's about incremental closes. That's what we do with the whole. How about with the FIA presentation? Is that full of incremental closes? Yes, the whole thing is an incremental close, right? I have them tell me in 1 hour 100 times that this would be way better than what they're currently doing. Create and follow a plan for meetings and stick to the plan. Again, how do we handle? How does our first meeting differ from, no matter how they come to see us, is our first meeting different? No. No matter why they come to see us, is our second meeting different? No. And the reason that's successful is because it's been done way over 60,000 times successfully. Take the back and forth out of scheduling the next meeting. You got to do this, guys. If you want to speed up your selling process, nobody should leave your office without what? An appointment locked in. Exactly, Tom. An appointment locked in. Don't say, let me work on this. I'll call you when I get it put together. You have to have that next meeting locked in before they leave the office. Because otherwise, that meeting is going to occur next week will occur 3 weeks from now. Does that make sense? Schedule it right then and there. And you should also have them tell you why it makes sense to have that meeting that quickly. The greed, fear, and frustration. Make sense? Every next meeting should be scheduled before they leave that meeting. Social proof. We use social proof a lot in the FIA presentation. What's the phrase I always use in the FIA presentation? Constantly. What's the phrase I use constantly in the FIA presentation that gives social proof? What's the question I ask? Yeah, that's right, Nick. Good job. Why do all my clients like this? Why do all my clients that are concerned about liquidity think that this is more liquid? Why do all my clients that are concerned, do this when they're only going to get 50% of the rate of return? Why wouldn't they want to be in the market? Why wouldn't they want to be in the CD? Why do all my clients? So the funny thing is, am I giving them social proof, or are they giving me social proof? When I say, ask the question, why do all my clients? Who's giving the social proof at that point? They're giving me the social proof. They're telling me why everybody works with me. Make sense? Use a CRM to improve the customer experience. So what that's saying is, first of all, if you don't have a CRM, you're flushing your marketing dollars down the tube. Because a CRM means, guys, will everybody buy the first time you talk to them? What have they found with selling process? Do people normally buy on the first touch, second touch, or is it usually 7 or 8 touches down the road? On average, 7 multiple times, right? So now, think about this. That's on average. That means some people will buy after the first meeting, second meeting, third meeting, fourth meeting, fifth meeting, sixth meeting, seventh meeting. But some people aren't going to buy till the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th meeting. So when you stop marketing to people after they've said no, whether it's no for an appointment at a seminar, no to your presentation, whatever it may be, you got to keep marketing to them. And do we have tools to help you do that at 21? Drip, 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 right. Drip, drip, drip. So you got to have the CRM to make sure you're doing that, making sure you're constantly touching them. Because what is the number one reason people leave their current advisor? Contact. And if you're contacting them, will their advisor make a mistake? Eventually. Yes. And if you're the one that's communicating, who are they going to call when that advisor makes a mistake? Now, that advisor might not make a mistake. Well, I'll give you an example. When the market finally crashes and the clients call their advisor, will advisors say, no, we planned for this. We knew it was going to happen. This is just temporary. It's going to come back. So we just need to take a breath. We don't want to be rash. We just got to take a breath and it'll come back. So you just got to be, don't listen to the news anymore. Just let me handle it. It's going to come back. It always does. Guys, is that a mistake? If that's the way an advisor handles that call to his client, is that a mistake? Yes. Because what did he just tell the client? What the hell are you worried about? I got this handled. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. Why'd you even bother calling me? We talked about this. See, that's what that's what the client is hearing. And if you've been communicating with them every single month with the epidemic marketing for the last year or 2 years, guess what? And then they get your newsletter in the mail after that phone call. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to call you. So dripping on people, using a CRM, that's an important thing. The new buying funnel. This is the way it used to be. Half marketing, half sales. Now you got to do more marketing to get in front. Why do you have to do more marketing now to get in front of people to sell? This is not importance. This is volume. Selling is always going to be way more important than marketing, because if marketing gets you in front of 300 people, I've talked to guys that did expensive steak seminars, spent 10 grand, got in front of 100 people, and made no money. So it's not just about marketing. You got to be able to close them. But volume-wise, why do we have to do more marketing than we used to? How often is that's right, more jaded. How often is the average boomer hit with a marketing message per day? There's no real accurate number to this. I've seen some research say it's 300 times a day. Some research say it's 1,000 times a day. Because if you think about it, between radio, TV, internet, social media, billboards, everything else, you know, they're gonna be hit with a ton of marketing messages. And so, if you want to to get in front, you better do good marketing. You better do a lot of marketing to get in front. So when you haven't made a sale, go back to making a sale per month. If you haven't made a sale per month, what should you be asking yourself about the next 30 days? In fact, I've told Jerry and Matt, I've told them to ask you guys, if you haven't made a sale in a month, guess what the first question out of their mouth is going to be? Hey, everybody has a down month, but we got to figure out, no, not why, because, why is accusatory, right? So we want to say, we're not going to look back. We want to look what? So I appreciate you saying that, Kevin, but we don't want to be, what's under the water under the bridge is water under the bridge. We don't want to talk about what happened, but, because we can't change last month. What we want to know then is what are you going to do next month to get in front of that person? Last month we saw whatever we were doing last month didn't work. So let's figure out what are we going to do this month? Where are we going to find that one person to get in front of? Does that make sense? You got to be marketing constantly. You can't turn that on and off in even some little different ways. 6 ways to create personalized customer experience. We give that to you in the WOW manual. Has anybody used the WOW manual? How much does it cost to do the things we're talking about to make the client experience unbelievable for them when they come in? How much does that cost for you to do? About $200. $200 for them to be telling their friends, neighbors, and relatives about how well they were treated when they came to you. It has nothing to do with plush carpeting, has nothing to do with plush furniture. It has to do with their experience. And it only costs you $200. If you have not looked at the WOW manual, if you're not implementing what we talk about in the WOW manual, you are missing something that's going to speed up your selling process immediately. Because when people have an unbelievable experience at a restaurant, unbelievable experience on a vacation, unbelievable experience when they're buying a car, what are they going to do? They're going to go back. That's the place they want to go because it makes them feel great. So if you haven't done this, you can find it in the archive library, under archive library, and it's right down there. $200, and you can give people an unbelievable experience. Make sure you're doing that. Then we're going to end up here with a thought of the week. Practice makes perfect. No, it does not. What does practice make? Progress. Practice makes progress. Make sure you're getting a little bit better every day. You do that with the 15-minute drill, starting your day with the 15-minute drill. You do that by scheduling a couple hours every week to go back and take one of the 21-point checklist scripts and getting even better at it. Nobody's going to be perfect. I'm not perfect. What you want to do is constantly get a little bit better. Does that make sense? 1% better every single working day will make you 1,000. If you do the math and you do the compounding, it's like 900% better by the end of the year. It's almost 1,000% better. Make sense? So I appreciate all you guys. You have a great rest of the week, and we'll talk to you all next Monday. Thanks, everybody.